Hey you, let's create your first writing sample for your copywriting portfolio, step by step. Now this is going to be the quick and dirty version because I really want to make it simple for you because more often than not, I see people overcomplicate it. This is the thing about copywriting is because you're writing, the proof is in the pudding, meaning somebody's going to be able to look at your writing and know relatively quickly how good you are. Obviously, it's more nuanced than that. But it's not like something like coding where you'd actually have to like prove to someone that you're like can do it. Do you know what I mean? Most people are going to be able to glance at your portfolio and know, okay, this is somebody I'd like to try working with. So because of that, creating your portfolio means that you can just like create a portfolio. You don't actually have to have copywriting work yet, but you do need to be studying copywriting, practicing copywriting, getting feedback on copywriting so that you can actually get better and it can be effective. Far too often, I see newbie copywriters get stuck in this place. They're like, what do I do? What do I create? And I'm like, you can just create anything, like truly. It's really as simple as looking at something that already exists out there and then thinking to myself, I'm going to try and write a better version of that. That's it. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to actually take action because that is where you learn. You can only get so far by thinking about it or reading about it. It is in the action that you will actually have big aha moments and become a better copywriter. So the best thing you can do is to get started writing as quickly as possible to get your work in front of a bunch of different people's eyes, not your friends and family, people who are actually trained in copywriting, because they usually have no idea what they're talking about. I love them. Don't worry. We all love them. But that's not the people you want feedback from. You want feedback from a copy editor, another copywriter, somebody who is familiar with marketing, somebody like that. So let's get started. How can you write your first copywriting portfolio piece as quickly as possible? My favorite beginner piece to recommend to newbie copywriters is a blog, and here's why. You'll hear lots of people recommend things like emails or product descriptions, but blogs are longer form, which is going to give you more of an opportunity to actually stretch your writing skills to actually get better as a writer, rather than just like relying on templates, for example, and to practice copywriting techniques. The other reason I like blogs is because they're generally low pressure. They're not direct response copy, meaning a direct action doesn't necessarily need to be taken, although some are. But it's not something like a sales page, right? Which is direct response copy, which can be really high pressure. The point of a blog is to drive traffic to a website through SEO, which is not usually as complicated as it seems, to be able to connect with the reader and to offer helpful information, that presents your product or service as the solution, to create content that you can then use across other platforms, emails, social media, so it's multi-purpose. And finally, to get people to take action. Like, I really think blogs are a waste of time if you're not encouraging somebody to like join an email list, purchase a product or service, or something of that nature, which ultimately makes it copy and not content. And because blogs are kind of the lower hanging fruit, they're needed across all industries, they're a lot easier to get your foot in the door. They're also needed on a recurring basis, which is great for setting you up with a retainer, meaning you'll have more recurring work from the same client. Whereas a sales page, generally they need one sales page and they might not need another sales page for years. And finally, you can make $200 a blog as a beginner. So it's a really, really great starting point. Okay, so let me walk you through the quick and dirty steps to get your first portfolio piece up and running so you can put it on your website and start reaching out to clients. First, pick a topic that is relevant to your niche. And I want you to take it one step further and think, okay, what's my niche? Who's my ideal client? And who is their audience, right? So for example, I write for doctors. It's going to be a very different article for me to write a blog to doctors than it is for me to write for the doctor's audience, i.e. their patients. If you already know your niche and if you already know your ideal client, which they can change, don't get hung up on that. You can always switch. It's going to be so much easier to pick a topic. This is one of the reasons I really recommend newbies niche down rather than start as generalists. Yes, eventually once you're skilled as a copywriter, you can write across all niches, but having a niche in the beginning gives you focus. And this is a perfect example of how it gives you focus, right? So, for example, if I were to write my very first portfolio piece, I wouldn't write it just necessarily to doctors, but I'd actually write it to their patients. So maybe I'm going to write about the elimination diet for gut issues. And that's something that I know I'm going to be able to take and show my clients, and they're going to be like, wow, this would be so helpful for my audience, right? If you don't know who your ideal client is yet, don't even worry about it. Just pick something in your niche and roll with it. Do not let this be the thing that slows you down. Seriously. I cannot tell you how many times people overthink this, and the point of this exercise is to just write something, anything. I'm begging you, please, please, please don't get hung up on this. It's quite frankly not that important in the grand scheme of your potential career. So just do the thing. Do the thing, take the imperfect action, and move forward. Next, think about how is this piece going to actually help the reader? Let's use the elimination diet, for example. That's a really complicated diet that people often have to go on when they're having gastrointestinal issues. It's basically a diet where you have to eliminate a bunch of things and then slowly add it back in. So it's pretty easy to see how that can feel really complicated. So maybe this blog is about how to do the elimination diet when you've been having gastrointestinal issues. Probably wouldn't use the word gastrointestinal. I'd probably just say like gut health, gut issues, tummy aches, whatever, something a little bit more reader friendly. So a how-to guide would be insanely helpful, right? Because it's so complicated, it's probably overwhelming, and quite frankly, the reader probably doesn't feel very good. If they're looking for an elimination diet to try and figure out what's causing them all these gut health issues, they're probably not in a place where they can read anything that's too overly complicated. So the best thing I can do for them is to give them a comprehensive how-to guide and to make it really simple and easy to follow. Next, do research. Read about the elimination diet. Make sure you're looking at things that are up to date. Make sure you're checking out different studies. If you're not in the science niche, you will not need to look at studies. Now, this is the other place where people get so hung up. Keep in mind, this is a blog. This is not a research paper. This is not a double-blind study. You are not meant to research for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, especially if it's only like 1,000 words, which is what I would recommend you start at. You do not need to research that much to write a 1,000-word blog. As somebody who came from a research background, like my literal last job was an actual research associate whose job it was to research, I can tell you I fell victim to this whole thing too. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta know everything to write a blog about an elimination diet. You really, really don't. You just have to help them get started, and you just have to solve that initial problem. You don't have to go into like every single detail. It's only 1,000 words. That's not a lot, really. And maybe you incorporate that into the title. How to get started with the elimination diet when you're feeling like shit. That is a great place to start because maybe somebody's not ready for the whole shebang. One of the best things you can do to get faster at writing, especially if you're writing blogs, is to limit your research time. People tend to spend way too much time researching. And now I'm saying you still need research. I'm just trying to account for what I have seen as a trend across newbie copywriters. I'm not saying that you do not need to research. Researching, market research is so important to becoming a good copywriter. But what I tend to see is people overcompensate. And the thing is they're usually overcompensating because they're scared, because they're afraid that they'll embarrass themselves, because they have imposter syndrome, because they are, just worried of making a fool of themselves or not having all the information. It comes from a place of fear, right? And so I'm just trying to push back specifically on those instances because it's more common than the person who just is like, I'm not going to research. That's what I see anyway. But ultimately, it's going to be about finding that happy balance. So I just wanted to touch on that. Anyway, your next step is to pick 2 to 5 long tail keywords. Long tail keywords are going to be things that are going to be incorporated into your blog so that when people are searching for Google, it's likely that your blog will come up as a search result. Now, keep in mind, the long tail keyword is often more impactful than the primary keyword because you're going to end up in front of people who are specifically looking for this. So maybe the keyword is a simplified elimination diet or how to get started with an elimination diet. Take some time, use Ubersuggest, answer the public, and type in a few keywords, get some ideas, but ultimately make sure that the keywords you're using are things people type into Google. So keep in mind, people are usually typing into Google their problems, not their solution, right? And I always have to remind my doctor clients this. So it's not helpful to start with a solution as a keyword. What you want to use as a long tail keyword is the questions they're asking that they're actually typing into Google to try and find the solution. And then voila, your blog, article, website is the solution. It can be really tempting to get hung up in the weeds in this and to overthink it. But truly, I just want you to practice for this particular piece, just picking 2 to 5 long tail keywords, answering questions even. They can just be questions. That can actually be the subtitles in your blog. That's a really nice little hack. Finding 5 questions that people are asking about the elimination diet and making that each a subtitle and then answering those questions. Super great way to outline a blog. Then you can fill out each section. Sometimes I actually like to break down the sections of the different pieces by word. So this section, if I break it down, if it's 1,000 words, this is going to be 200, this is going to be 200, this is going to be 200, prevents me from overwriting, especially for a portfolio piece. And then I kind of start filling it out. At the very end, go back and write your title. I really like writing the title last because I already know what everything is about. I like to use CoSchedule Headline Analyzer. It's a very helpful tool to make sure that you're evoking interest and emotion. It'll give you a score. It's kind of fun to play with it and fiddle with it till you get a higher score. But I do think writing the headline last is super important. Sometimes I will have what I call a working headline, meaning something that's at the top of the page just to kind of give me focus as I'm moving through the piece. But ultimately, I'll go back and clean it up at the end. You can also go back and clean up your subtitles in this way. I think that's a really, really good idea as well. Write it all down. Try not to edit as you go, and then go back and edit it. You've got Grammarly, which is a great tool for catching punctuation and grammatical errors. You do not need the paid version. At least I don't use the paid version. And then the HemingwayApp.com is a really great tool for actually dropping that piece in there, simplifying sentences, making sure the reading level is about 6th grade. Obviously, if you're writing about the elimination diet, it's probably going to be a little bit higher, but keeping it, in the middle school range is really, really helpful. And then, the CoSchedule Headline Analyzer, which actually I think that's now called Headline Studio. And then the next step is to publish it. This is another thing that people get so hung up on. They think that publishing it is this big thing that means millions of people are going to see it. But online, it's actually going to take a while for people to discover it and to find it because of SEO. So don't worry too much about that. Just hit publish and then pat yourself on the back because that is a massive, massive accomplishment. You can either publish it on your website or you can publish it on a website like Medium, which is a content site. But either one, just please put it out into the world because that is another final big step that people get hung up on and overthink, and it prevents them from moving forward. So don't let that be the thing that prevents you from moving forward either. Now you have a portfolio piece that is live, and anytime a client asks you for a sample, you'll be able to link to it. So congratulations, it is really not that complicated. The most important thing is that you're taking action and that you're learning along the way. So I hope this helps. Please, please, please go write your first portfolio piece. I'm begging you, and try not to overthink it. And if this helps, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It lets me know that you want to see more videos like this. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe. And I love hearing from you in the comments. This is how I came up with this actual topic, was from reading comments from you guys. So those are super, super helpful. And have a great day. Thanks, guys.